What's up, everybody? And this is episode 257 of Real Me and Colin, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, the guys will look at a plethora of movie news that have dropped throughout the week, and then some trailers to add on top of all that. And then the guys are also going to be reviewing Green Book, the newest film from Universal, and one of the co-directors of Dumb and Dumber. What is all that about? We have no clue. But and then, of course, Joel will have his menu review of The Favorite. All that and more on this week's Reel Me In. What is going on, everybody, on this beautiful Sunday morning in Dallas, Texas, Arlington, Texas, wherever we're recording at. What's going on, everybody? I am Chase Lee, one of your co-hosts on this movie podcast where, you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, anything about movies. I am not joined alone today. This is a episode that, it's been a couple weeks since Joel has been back on, but Joel is back on this week. We are back in full force, and we're going to be giving you guys a lot of content this month, and it's going to be fantastic. Joel, how are we? What's going on this week? Screener season is upon us. Oscar season, award season. Is it overwhelming for you, or how are you faring out there?
I'm faring pretty well. I haven't. I've watched several screeners, online screeners mostly, but some documentaries. I've seen some movies. It's been a pretty crazy week. I watched David Ehrlich's top 25 countdown video like 700 million times this week, of course, because that's a big event every year. Just kind of chilling at work, taking on more hours at work this month, so that's going to be fun to juggle. Otherwise, just kind of, preparing for my grandparents' imminent visit. They're coming down for a week this week. So, yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Certainly excited to talk about the the two big trailers, really, this week. So
yeah, that's what's kind of weird. Like when you and I do not do an episode for a couple weeks, it's almost like Hollywood knows, and they're just like, hey, we're going to just drop all this stuff because they're not recording this week, so we're going to just like let it slide, and then we're just like, no, you cannot do that, and then we catch them in the act, and then of course we talk about it. But it's been a pretty busy week for me as well. I've been catching up on all the screeners. I mean, if you go to my YouTube page, I've been busy just posting up everything that I missed, including like Ben is Back, Leave No Trace, The Front Runner, a bunch of stuff from like A24, Bleecker Street. It's just I just been kind of catching up on all the ones that I kind of missed throughout the year, and I've been throwing them on my YouTube page. I don't have to do it, but it's just I think it's like common courtesy. It's like, hey, listen, if I'm gonna be privileged to get stuff sent out to me, I don't even have to have that stuff sent out to me, but I want to do them a solid and actually review it for them. And so I've been doing that, and of course I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse yesterday, and I think that's my last screening.
And I hate you for that.
No. You love me because I saw it before you. I think it's my last screening I have for the rest of the year because I don't got anything else booked. I'm seeing The Favorite next week, which is a great segue into what Joel is reviewing after Green Book. So I will not be talking about that because I haven't seen it yet. But busy week indeed. But you know what also has been busy, Joel, is Hollywood, because it just never quits. So what's been going on in that news world of the H-Wood?
Quite a bit, actually. There's been a lot of projects announced, a lot of directors announced for projects that were already in existence, some casting news. Not a lot of casting news this past couple weeks. I think that's probably going to come more in the next few weeks, honestly. It was kind of quiet on that end, but I'll get to that later. First of all, we have that imminent Resident Evil reboot. We learned about that a while ago. I think that you and I actually talked about that.
Because it was announced like 2 days after the last one was like in theaters, and you're like, what are you doing? Hey, this last one's in theaters, but don't worry, we're gonna reboot it.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I mean, I couldn't care less. I liked the first movie. I didn't really like any of the others, so especially not the final chapter. the one that came out that year. So it's bad. But they are getting a director who proved himself just earlier this year, I think, with the horror genre, which is baffling because they're not keeping this franchise in the horror genre. But um, Johannes Roberts, who directed 47 Meters Down, is currently at work on the sequel, which was formerly known as 48 Meters Down. I don't know if you knew this, but it changed. It's now called 47 Meters Down: The Next Chapter, because that's really clever. But he also directed The Strangers Prey at Night earlier this year, so I think that he can stage stuff really well, particularly scare scenes. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I can't really get worked up about this one. Um, so I'm just going to go ahead with these next couple of uh, direct attached director stories, and then I'll ask you about all of them. So here's another one that probably no one cares about, because the last time we saw a GI Joe movie was in 2013, and I'm pretty sure that no one at all remembers it, even remotely. I literally cannot remember the plot points of that movie. I thought the first one was fine, but now there's going to be a spin-off surrounding the silent ninja of the group, Snake Eyes, and it's going to be called Snake Eyes. And it's been written by Evan Spiliotopoulos, who took on the Beauty and the Beast remake for Disney last year, and also the Huntsman and Winter's War the year before that. Certainly one of those screenwriters that just kind of does stuff for money, I think. I don't think I've ever really seen a truly dignified choice from him, and I know that that's like a big diss, but it's true. And then there's a director attached now. It's Robert Schwenke, who directed some pretty good movies, just one after another. I thought, at least that these three were all pretty good. Flight Plan with Jodie Foster, really solid suspense thing. The Time Traveler's Wife with Eric Bana and Rachel McAdams, I thought was a good kind of supernatural romance. I liked that one quite a bit. And Red, the first Red. He did not direct the second Red, but he directed the first one, and I liked that. Pretty solid action flick. But since then, he's kind of gone downhill. He directed that horrible R.I.P.D. thing. He did the second and third movies in the Divergent series. It just, I don't think that he he recently kind of got a bump up because he worked in the foreign language kind of context with a movie called The Captain from earlier this year that I've heard good things about. I haven't seen it, but it's filmed in black and white, so maybe he's kind of coming off of that and wanting to do something big. But yeah, this seems like the wrong step to me, because there's really nothing to this character that I can remember as being actually interesting. I just, other than the fact that what was his name? Ray, was it Ray? The guy who played Maul plays Snake Eyes in the series, and I just forgot. Ray Park. Ray Park is his name. He also played the Toad in the first movie, and he also played the body of the Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow, some other stuff. But yeah, whatever. I just don't like that. All right, and then the last thing is also kind of unnecessary, at least to me, although it seems that they have a clearer vision of what's in store for this. Disney is doing a live-action movie surrounding Cruella de Vil, the villain from 101 Dalmatians, and now they have, Emma Stone's kind of been circling around it. Apparently she's been locked in now, but there's a director attached again, Craig Gillespie, who directed I, Tonya just last year. He also did Lars and the Real Girl about 10 years ago. Great movie. And he's directed a couple of things for Disney since then. $1 Million Arm with John Hamm, and The Finest Hours with Chris Pine and Ben Foster. And yeah, I don't know. This kind of smells a lot like Maleficent to me. There wasn't quite enough of a reason for me to to get behind the existence of this kind of story. But apparently it's going to be set in the 80s. There's going to be a punk vibe to it. I don't know what that means for Disney. I don't know how much of a punk vibe that's going to have. But, Emma Stone, great actress, certainly. I'm going to get into that later on in the episode. But yeah, I don't see the reason really for any of these, actually. I don't like any of these stories in particular. What are you thinking over there?
I don't either. It's like you purposely fished through the most bland trash can in Hollywood, and you picked out 3 ideas. Thank you, Joel. So the Resident Evil reboot thing, it's, to be honest with you, and this is going to shock a lot of people, out of the 3, this is probably my, I guess, most anticipated out of the 3, just because I actually like Strangers Prey at Night, and I actually like 47 Meters Down. I've seen it more times than I like to admit, but
he's seen it 17 times.
Not 17. I've seen it 47 times, and I was also
47 times.
Yeah, 47 times. Yeah, with that
47 viewings down. There we go.
Oh my god, that sounds like a terrible Roger and Ebert rating. Yes, I like his style. With the Strangers Prey at Night, it was a definite throwback to films of the 80s, and with 47 Meters Down, the fact that you're able to work with 2 actresses underwater like that for most of the movie and create this kind of like claustrophobic atmosphere, I actually really enjoyed it. And so, and I still think it's got one of the most devastating endings, for a shark movie that I've ever seen. Because spoiler alert, she died and she went to heaven. And it's just really sad when you think about that theory and you're like, oh yeah.
Maybe the next chapter. I never saw it and I have no interest. But the maybe the next chapter is a shark movie set in heaven. That would be fun.
A shark movie set in heaven. Can you imagine if you got up to the pearly gates and you're like all this like years of anticipation? You're like, what is God going to look like? And he just turns around and he's a hammerhead, and you're like, what? I actually don't mind this piece of news. Do I want to see like a Resident Evil like reboot in general? Not really. I think what's going to really get me on board is who they're going to cast as the replacement for Mila Jovovich, because she's been the face of that franchise for several hundred years now, and so whoever you're going to get, it has to be a fresh face. It has to be someone new and exciting for me to get excited, because right now all I think about is Mila Jovovich being directed by her husband and really crappy adaptations, but that's neither here nor there. The G.I. Joe thing I could care less about. The only thing I remember from Rise of Cobra is that really heavily CGI'd like train scene when they were fighting on the fast subway, where I forgot what it was. That was the only thing I remember. And then Marlon Wayans in a skin tight suit.
And you don't even remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I remember that, and then Marlon Wayans probably saying some stupid lines in a skin tight suit. So I could care less about that. And then the Cruella DeVille thing, you're absolutely right. It absolutely reeks of Maleficent. It's like Disney's just like, hey, listen, this was successful. We're making a sequel. Let's just dip into all of our, villains and just make movies. But it's just, you don't have to do that. Just stop.
You're kind of retroactively reflecting poorly on your original movie, because what you're trying to do is humanize the villain in some way.
This is a person that skins dogs. Yeah. She wears dog coats. Like, you can't humanize this person.
Yeah, I'm not interested in how she gets to that point.
Yeah, I'm not either. And
clearly something led her to that point. Like that's not.
You realize what they're going to do, right? They're going to probably start the movie out. She's going to be like, maybe like this innocent little orphan that's just like grew up in an orphanage. She was bullied, and then like she's like an artist or whatever. She writes in her journal, and she's like, "Oh wow, what a sweet little innocent girl." And then she sees a dog on the street, and she's like, "I really want to make a coat out of that." And then she grows up, and we're like, "Cool, so we're supposed to like this person?" How are you going to do this?
Or worse comes first, they basically like have dogs attack her or something, and then because. Like, that's probably the only thing that could get her to that point. And then that kind of, again, retroactively kind of reflects poorly upon your original movie, because the point of the original movie is that the dogs were cute. So why make them the if they are like some sort of source of trauma for her or something, and that's why she's getting back at them by creating codes, or she's just evil and there's no reason to humanize her.
It just
It's
makes no
just
sense to me. And listen, I am all for people looking ahead at the schedule of movies and be like, I don't really want to see that. And so I can definitely tell you right now, this is a terrible idea, and PETA is just going to like completely go against this movie from day one. Because you're right, it's going to have like some type of like dog torture or psychological. Something's going to happen. It's not going to come across really like well at all. It's just going to be really awkward, and I just what a
hopefully this gives slightly unrelated, but hopefully this gives them the Disney the excuse to put the Glenn Close 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians on Blu-ray, because otherwise they're really hard to find on physical copy. And if people want to try to watch those, like I know that people would want to watch the original animated movie, which is great, by the way. I love the original animated movie. But they might want to watch the other live action one too, just to kind of, there's going to be a pairing there. It's going to be an automatic pairing with those movies, just because they were also live action and they were also about Cruella de Vil, or featured her. So I think that that would be good. That would be a good move for them to do. But the fact that it would come, alongside this other thing, just yeah. And then one quick thing about the first G.I. Joe, it's because it comes from the director of like stuff like The Mummy. And Van Helsing, I think. And I enjoy that director's work. I think that he's a solid. They're not great movies, but I think that he just directs solid little action throwdowns.
He's like a reliable like studio director, where like if they need something kind of just in and out really quickly, they call upon those type of people.
Yeah, right, a lob down the middle of the audience. Like they're either going to hate it or they're going to enjoy it, and I'm a person who enjoys it. I like all three Mummy movies. They weren't all directed by him, but I think he directed the first and third ones. So I like that director. So I just G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra, not Retaliation, because that wasn't directed by him. It was so. All right, so the next two bits of news come from Universal. The first one surrounds the music of the late great Prince, who of course died when was it?
Was it last year?
I think it was early 2017. Of course, very, very sad, because he was a genius. And, coming hot off something so insanely and honestly bafflingly popular like Bohemian Rhapsody, of course, people are kind of wanting to go after these musicians that were considered geniuses, and Prince is certainly one of those, or the artist formerly known as Prince, the unpronounceable thing that he made his name. So this one isn't going to be a biopic, but there is going to be a film based around the music of Prince, much like Mamma Mia and its sequel took on the music of ABBA. And you know what? I'm in favor of this. I think that particularly because Prince's music is so good, way better than ABBA's. I'm not a fan of ABBA. I'll just make that clear. I have nothing against ABBA. It's not like I hate them. I just it's like overtly because I just watched these two movies this year. It's just overtly sincere music to the degree that it just is slightly annoying to me. It just hits me in all the places that I find annoying. I have nothing against it. They do have a couple of nice beats, but Prince is way better, way, way better than ABBA. And I think that basing a movie around his music, especially because a lot of it was so distinctively personal and also was rife with kind of imagery in the lyrics, I think that it lends itself better to cinema than ABBA does. And that's the best example similar to this. So, Universal has a lot of musically inclined movies, and I think that this might be the one that I'm most excited for. Apparently, Paul Feig is directing a movie that has a lot of music with from George Michael in it, which I'm really excited because I like George Michael. And then they also have Tom Hooper's Cats coming. So this is just their latest kind of bid to do this, and this might be the one that I'm most excited to see. I really like this. It's not going to be a biopic. It's not going to be Purple Rain. It's going to be its own thing, and I'm really excited for that. The other bit of news, I'm less familiar with this. I know that the musical is very, very popular. It's Dear Evan Hansen. It's a Tony Award winner, and it's going to be made into a movie from producers Mark Platt and Adam Siegel. Now, Mark Platt produced La La Land, and his son Ben originated the lead role of Evan Hansen, or whatever, whoever it is, uh, on in the musical. So pretty cool, and it's apparently the younger Platt is going to be reprising his role in the movie. So um, now, what's interesting is that this actually comes from songwriters Benj Pasek and Judd Hall, who did La La Land and also wrote the songs for The Greatest Showman. And they, I think, another one in the works. Oh, they're writing the songs for Aladdin. So, and then there's the director, Stephen Chbosky of The Perks of Being a Wallflower and Wonder. I didn't see Wonder, but I did love The Perks of Being a Wallflower. He's in talks to direct this. He's no stranger to musicals. Co-wrote the Beauty and the Beast remake, so I think that this one's in good hands. I'm not really familiar with the show. It follows a high school senior who gets caught in a lie when a classmate commits suicide, and grows, kind of brings him closer to that classmate's family. It's a really interesting plot. It's one that I've been wanting to see but living in the outskirts of Dallas, I don't have many opportunities to do that. So anyway, what do you think about these two news bits coming out of Universal?
Yeah, with the Dear Evan Hansen thing, I'm just like you. I don't really know much about it, but if you get a Chbosky to come direct this thing, like that material and that subject matter and that story, it sounds like it's right up the alley of like Perks of Being a Wallflower. So I think that's a great a great pick. As far as the Prince theme musical goes, yeah, give me like like can you find one person that's just gonna be like, I'm totally against this? Like, yeah, I'm curious to see like how they represent a Prince type movie after his passing. So yeah, I'm on board for both of these. Actually, I can't really comment that much on the Evan Hansen movie, but the Prince thing I'm looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to both, to be honest with you. So that's where I'm kind of at.
Cool. All right, so then these next two are also projects being developed by a studio, and this studio is Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, first of all, is apparently putting their money behind a Plastic Man movie. Now, I am not at all familiar with this character, but apparently he can stretch his body for any shape he can imagine. He has apparently like superhuman strength and invulnerability, including plastic organs, which is awesome. And this has been in the works for a while, I think, for a few years, I think. But they're finally, following through with it. They got a screenwriter, Amanda Idoko, who I think is kind of a first timer to big features like this. And I saw her reaction on Twitter. It was really, really nice, sweet reaction to the excitement of having this happen. So, it's going to be exec produced by Bob Shea and Walter Hamada and Chantal Nong. Sounds fun, certainly. We'll see, because sometimes these things can backfire, but has to be a hit. Obviously, they are confident in that. I'm certainly curious. I don't know much about this. This is sort of another Dear Evan Hansen situation, and so is this next one. I'm not really familiar with this character, but Warner Brothers and DC are teaming up to bring Blue Beetle to the big screen, and it's going to be a Latino character. Yeah, Jaime Reyes, who's the third iteration of the character, that's the one that they're going to be adapting. And it looks like it's going to be a Mexican-born screenwriter named Gareth Dunnett Alcocer, who's going to pen the screenplay. I don't know. Again, I don't know much about this. Apparently, it's based on a scarab that comes to life and attaches itself to Jaime's spine, increases his speed and strength, and it gives him weapons and wings and shields. This is yet another project for DC. I feel like they need to slow down a little bit, but yeah. So those are the two. I don't really have any feelings either way about this, particularly. Uh, we'll see how these both go. Are you pretty much in the same boat as me
Yeah,
on
I
this?
don't really have any feelings towards them, but I know exactly what this is. They are jumping the gun in confidence, by the way, but they are jumping the gun because they know that Shazam is going to be successful, and they are jumping the gun on similar styled type of movies. If you don't think Plastic Man is going to be in the same vein as like a Shazam and be more like a family comedy, then you're mistaken.
Yeah.
With the Blue Beetle, I was looking up at the history of this character. This character was created in 1939. So this is one of those kind of like almost like when Superman was developed and everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went in the same route and did more of like a comedy for Blue Beetle and more of like in the vein of like family entertainment. So these two projects scream to me that Warner Brothers sees something special in Shazam. And to be quite frank with you, now that, and we're going to talk about these trailers when we get to them, but now seeing the Captain Marvel trailer and the Avengers Endgame trailer and having Shazam in between both of those movies, I'm starting to come around now to the idea of having it as a palate cleanser, because it looks like Captain Marvel and Avengers are going to be a little heavier than a Shazam, and Shazam's going to be kind of like the lighter fare in between both of those, and so it actually might be genius marketing. I have no clue. We'll have to wait until we get there, but now that I know what Shazam's like and what the other movies are like, and knowing that people like the Shazam trailer and they're jumping the gun on this stuff, who knows? If Shazam's a huge hit, then these movies are definitely going to get made. But these are kind of like a wait and see type of deal where it's like, cool, pin a script, see what we got going on, and I will guarantee you that they're waiting on the opening box office numbers for Shazam before they go forward with any of these movies within this vein. So that's just kind of my thought process. I could be completely wrong, but I think these movies are a precursor to the confidence that Warner Brothers has with the Shazam.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It's interesting to see how much rides on Shazam at this point, just because it's such an unexpected movie to kind of put so much on. But yeah. All right, so now we have bits of casting to talk about. The first one is Tom Hanks, going to be playing Geppetto in Disney's Pinocchio live-action. Now, this is not, again, the Guillermo del Toro for Netflix movie, which is going to be stop-motion animation. This is the one that's going to be directed by Paul Paddington and Paddington 2, and written by somebody, although I know a bunch of script drafts out there, so I don't know who's going to be credited, but yes, so they're heavily in talks to have Tom Hanks play Geppetto. This movie the original movie is incredibly important to me. There was at one point not a day in the summer of, I think it was like 94 or 5, that I didn't watch that movie on the old shell case VHS tape until I wore it out. And I love it. It remains probably the darkest movie in the golden era of Disney, and it's genuinely the most touching too. There's great stuff in that screenplay. It's one of the best animated movies ever made. I'm obviously excited for Del Toro's vision, but I'm coming around on the Disney version. I think that this could work, especially considering King is such a critical darling after the Paddington movies. I think that he could have the right vision to kind of meld. It's obviously going to be part live action, part CGI to some degree. The character of Pinocchio might end up being played by a real person, but there's going to be a lot of visual effects kind of playfulness with obviously the nose and the features because he takes on the appearance of a puppet at first. So I'm excited for this. Hanks's casting, I think, is a way to basically bring a huge movie star into it. I think that there could be better choices, particularly because, recently in an interview, Paul Giamatti was saying that he is Italian and has never played an Italian character, which is ironic. And I think that he would be the better choice for this. I would love to see that, but obviously Hanks is one of the best actors ever. He's not just a great movie star, he's a great actor. And so we're in good hands. I just think that there could be slightly more interesting casting choices made for this. Especially because, and I'm not looking forward to the movie, sadly, because of various reasons, including the trailer. Aladdin, Will Smith being the genie is weird, but I just don't know if he fits. And that's sort of my thoughts here. It'll be interesting. So, and it's weird that he's coming off of, coming onto this right after he's going to be playing Fred Rogers in a movie directed by the director of Can You Ever Forgive Me, which I did not know until recently. But he's playing Fred Rogers, and then he's going to come around and play a massive, really, really popular Disney character. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess, is the best way I can put that. The next one concerns Brie Larson. Of course, her Captain Marvel movie just made the trailer debut this week. We'll get to that in a second. But she is going to be in the role of the girlfriend in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which is Charlie Kaufman's adaptation of the Ian Reid novel for Netflix. And this, if you're not familiar with this, the story centers on Jake, who is on a road trip to meet his parents on their secluded farm with his girlfriend, who is thinking of ending things. When Jake makes an unexpected detour, leaving her stranded, a twisted mix of palpable tension, psychological frailty, and sheer terror ensues. Friend of mine, out in and a colleague out in D.C., Dustin Putman, is a film critic and has high high opinions of novels. And this novel is his choice for the best novel of the last 10 years. So that's pretty high praise, and I'm gonna be interested to see what Kaufman does with this. I haven't read the novel. I think I might try to do that before this happens, just to kind of get an idea. Kaufman is a visionary. Just whether it be behind the paper or behind the camera, it's great. So yeah, I'm excited for this. Very much so. So, the last time Kaufman directed a movie was Synecdoche, New York, I think, right? So, Anomalisa, he co-directed. So, yeah, both really, Synecdoche, New York is truly great. And Anomalisa was something else, too. So, I'm really excited for this, for sure. And the last bit is that Warner Brothers is doing that live-action, somebody called it a live-action Sesame Street movie, which is what they always are. But anyway, their big Sesame Street movie that they're bringing to the screen, sort of in the vein of Disney with the Muppets, has a star apparently, and that is going to be Anne Hathaway. She's going to be the human. So yeah, it's very interesting. I think that this could very well be a good one. She plays Sally, who was the name of the girl in the very first episode of the show, which is pretty cool. So they're going back to the beginning with this, clearly, in some degree. It's going to be the first time they have had a a Sesame Street themed movie since The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland back in 2000 or 1999 or something. So I'm certainly excited for that. Obviously Sesame Street was a big part of my childhood. So some nice little casting bits. I like all of these stories. These are kind of collectively my favorite, but probably Anne Hathaway of those three. So what are your feelings on all of them?
Yeah, with the whole Anne Hathaway thing, it's a fine pick, and I think I don't think they're going to do this just because it skews more to babies than actual children. But I kind of wish they would do what the Muppets did in 2011 and kind of still have a family-friendly movie, but kind of poke fun of it itself a little bit. I don't know. I just think that would be a nice, fresh take. I know that's not.
I suspect that they'll try that.
Yeah,
honestly.
and I know that's not like their MO. I know that like
Right.
they're primarily like baby entertainment.
Yeah.
What that's not a problem because they still have like life lessons and all that stuff. That's good. And I know the Muppets are a little bit more edgier, but
Yeah.
I just think maybe if you took the vein of like a musical comedy while still appealing to families and stuff, and have Anne Hathaway be the Amy Adams, if you will, I think it could work. Now, if they're going to make just straight up, what they usually do on the show and then just convert it to the big screen, then you might as well just have it as an HBO movie then. There would be no cause to have it on the big screen if you're just going to do what you normally do. So
Yeah, because if you do that, it's essentially just Barney's Great Adventure all over again.
yeah, and we're not about that life.
Yeah, which was basically just an extended episode of the show, and
it's just it doesn't warrant the money, the effort, and the passion. It's just make something different. So I'm hoping that's the case.
Which they did a pretty good job, I thought, with Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland. I thought that was a good way of bringing it to the theaters. I thought it was cleverer than something like Barney's Great Adventure, which was dreadful.
As long as we stay out of that territory, I think we'll be good. The whole Tom Hanks thing, this is a pure business move because they know that the Mr. Rogers movie is going to crush, and they're going to ride the coattails off of that. There's nothing wrong with that because, just like Joel said, we can't really get mad at Tom Hanks for accepting these roles and stuff because it's Tom Hanks. Like, he can do whatever he wants because he is one of the greatest actors working today, and even in the conversation of all time. And so I think it was just something that Disney saw and was just like, hey, listen, he's going to be playing Mr. Rogers. He's probably going to crush it. He might even get Oscar nominations for it. Let's go ahead and ride the coattails and have him play another iconic Disney animated character. So, with Joel bringing up like a Paul Giamatti or something like that, I think that would be a little bit more of an exciting pick because Paul Giamatti has always been fantastic, but he never gets the recognition he deserves, and maybe this is the movie that would prop him up into finally the stardom that he deserves with general movie going audiences. But Tom Hanks, once again, not a bad pick. So with the Brie Larson thing, this is the cool thing about signing multiple contracts for a big superhero film or a big franchise. Now, I know a lot of people are against it and just ruining the industry, no original movies anymore. That's a bunch of hoo-ha-hee. There's original movies all the time, and this is one of them. But the one thing I really, really, really like about all these actors taking on these superhero films and signing these multiple contracts is that they are set for life in terms of finances. These are the movies that pay their bills. What I like about that, and what I like about a Brie Larson or like a Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth, is that they'll do these movies, big blockbusters for most of the world's population, but then they'll do these smaller films in between, and they're not going to get paid that much because they are set with Marvel. So they don't have to worry about that, to where they can take pay cuts and do these riskier films and do these smaller indie films. And I think that's amazing because that's, the whole mentality of, do one for them, do one for you. And I think working with Charlie Kaufman is such a great departure, from the blockbusters, and to just show her craft to new fans now. Because the thing is with Brie Larson is that, people like Joel and myself, or maybe even you guys listening to this podcast, we have known her for years, whether it be in 21 Jump Street, The Spectacular Now, Short Term 12, Room, and she even won her Oscar for it. Yes, so that did put more eyes on her, but there's still a lot of people that don't really know her. So Captain Marvel is going to do that for her, and she's going to get new fans. And so you flip that around, and you have the new fans going, okay, what's she doing next? She's doing the what is this movie? Oh, I'll give it a shot. And maybe people will like it, maybe people won't. But, I think working with the Charlie Kaufman is genius, because the guy is a visionary. He is the type of filmmaker and the type of writer to where no one does what he does. Anytime when you watch any of his movies, that is his movie. no one can replicate what he does or what he conveys in terms of script or directing. The guy is a one of a kind. And I think this is a brilliant move. Probably my favorite piece of casting, but that's just kind of my thoughts on all that.
All right, guys. So now we have a quick Oscar beat. I'm going to be handicapping the film editing and makeup and hairstyling contenders because it's been a couple weeks. I'm going to catch up. So first off is going to be our film editing category, and this is a pretty competitive one. So right at the top, I have a feeling that Roma's just going to take this. It's such an intimidatingly well edited movie. There's another movie here that I think should win, but I certainly think it's gonna win. At least one that should win from these contenders. Because of course on the outskirts you have stuff like Black Panther or Black Klansman, which is certainly in the conversation. Something like Widows I think should just outright win best film editing. And you also have, right down the middle players like If Beale Street Could Talk and Green Book, which probably will be a little bit more traditionally edited, but certainly, well edited. And then you have stuff like Vice, which actually comes from the film editor that Adam McKay used on The Big Short, Hank Corwin. And in my opinion, The Big Short had the best film editing of all of 2015. So certainly going to be in the conversation this year. Something like The Favorite is really well constructed, well organized storytelling, and I'm going to get into that later on, but that's certainly in there. A Star is Born is obviously one of those more kind of traditionally edited pictures that should be able to easily get in, and obviously First Man. I think that this is the one that of the clear contenders should win. It's just remarkably well edited. This thing is one of the most tense films of the year in terms of just sheer tension. It's incredible, and it twists you like a knife. Just like it's just the tension is palpable, and it's through the editing. So I think that that's the movie that should win, but I have a feeling that Roma's going to take this, and for good reason. It's there's a lot of long takes, so the argument is going to be given by people who don't understand how it works that there's not much editing, but there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff to
editing is together. All about timing. Like you have to time out the shots correctly. So even if it's a long shot, you have to cut it or let it play out in terms of like how the story flows. Like so, if it is a long take, you might have to chop it earlier. You might have to extend it. It just depends on the mood of the scene. So that argument is just stupid.
Yeah, it is, and especially the fact that Cuarón co-edited it is going to be something on the minds of voters, particularly when they watch the movie. I think in that branch and elsewhere, if anybody else votes for that, it's very true. The next is makeup and hairstyling, and of course, this is the one that always ends up with 3 nominees. So it's not that much to talk about. There's a clear set of contenders. I don't think that the short list has been released yet, but so we have some there automatically at the top, though. The fantasy angle is a curious one to me because I have a feeling that there's really only one that's going to make it, and it's the one that's clearly the most impressive just on the face of it, and that's The Nutcracker in the Four Realms. It's great work all across the board. It has this, everybody from Keira Knightley's character who has like pink hair and makeup, and it doesn't look as garish as everything else on screen. It's really impressive. It's probably the thing that should win, in my opinion, although there is another contender here that is downright baffling whenever you watch the trailer. I've only seen the trailer, but it's a movie called Border. It's a fairy tale about a couple of people who let's just say I'm just gonna say watch the trailer. I don't want to describe the people in this. I don't know have you seen the trailer for this, Chase?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, when we're done, go watch the trailer, and you'll see what I mean. Apparently, that is makeup. It's quite it's quite incredible. But the one that's going to win because it's a Best Picture contender, and because it's the prestige choice is the favorite, which I think is certainly a handsome winner. There's a lot of the rudimentary, sort of period specific um, work done on, with the makeup and the lips, with the kind of that lipstick that only comes in the middle of the lips, kind of traditional to that period. There's a lot of hairstyling. Certainly, that's probably going to get it nominated on its own. But and then of course you have something like Vice, which transforms Christian Bale into Dick Cheney, and some of the other characters vaguely into the other characters, any other figures surrounding Cheney, but mostly because of Cheney, and that's gonna probably get it the Darkest Hour nomination, if you will. And even something like Black Panther or Mary Poppins Returns, Suspiria could certainly be in the conversation. There's a lot of, particularly for the character played by Lutz Ebersdorf, could be in there. Aquaman, obviously, a lot of weird kind of Atlantean hairstyles and such. So there's some clear contenders here. I think that the one fantasy nominee, though, is going to be the Nutcracker, and it's because it's also going to be something to watch in costume design and production design. It's going to obviously also be in this category as something to watch. So those are the two categories that I wanted to talk about this week. I think that The Favorite and Roma are certainly at the top of both. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our trailers this week. Chase, take us into the first one.
The very first one. All right, so, we got this one called All Is True. And I had no idea this even existed. But it just kind of came out of nowhere because that's what Joel likes to do. He likes to peruse the internet and find these like deep web trailers that no one ever talks about. So this one follows the final days in the life of William Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare is played by Kenneth Branagh, and it's also this film is directed by him as well. And I had no idea what this was, but it comes from Sony Pictures Classics, and I always kind of admire the risk that they take with all their films under this banner. And that's the one thing I can never take away from them. They might make some garbage with their traditional Sony logo and some really bad blockbusters, but their independent like market is quite astounding. With like last year with like Call Me by Your Name and stuff, they just love taking those risks, and I adore that. With this movie, we kind of see Kenneth Branagh, play William Shakespeare. He's interacting with people in his life, and, there's a really good line. I'm going to mess it up, but it had something to do with, like, I've been living, in a fantasy, and I've lost what's real or something like that. So, this is a guy that has spent most of his life, writing these plays and living other people's lives, but we don't really know how his life is. We don't really know how he interacts with the people around him. And I kind of like that aspect. It's a trailer that, it was very just kind of like this quiet filmmaking, and really just kind of, shows off, the performances and the characters. And I think it looks, quite solid. It doesn't look like anything mind-blowing, but I think with the performers at hand and the fact that we've never seen this side of Shakespeare told like this before, I think is really interesting. And I just he's one of the most influential people in history, and so I think making a movie like this on him on his final days like this is quite great. And just like what Joel was saying with like The Favorite, with the makeup and hairstyling, and the period set pieces and the costumes look really, really nice. I didn't even know that was Kenneth Branagh at first as William Shakespeare, because the makeup was pretty well handled. So yeah, I actually think
he looks exactly like Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, he does. That's why I thought it was at first. I was like, yeah. Oh, Ben Kingsley, that's weird. Like, he's a little taller because Ben Kingsley's quite a short fellow. So I was like, why is he so tall? But yeah, a very solid trailer, and I like the cast involved, and it just looks like a really nice little different take on Shakespeare.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. It doesn't look mind-blowing. It comes out like in 2 weeks, which I didn't realize.
Of course it does.
They're pretty late on the like actually. Although this was a surprise for people. Like people didn't know this was coming, and then all of a sudden it was announced, and then the trailer dropped. But yeah, it looks solid. Really good cast. I mean, he's surrounded by Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, and yeah, he looks like he gives a good performance here. A really good performance. Of course,
which
he's
we
a fine actor.
really haven't seen in a while. I mean, I like Kenneth Branagh,
Right.
and like he's done some solid work over the past few years, but we haven't seen like a good meaty role from him yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since Gilderoy Lockhart, which was a great performance. But anyway, I think it's a really good trailer. I'm excited to see it. Probably at home. I'm not going to go out to the theater to see this, but yeah, I'm a fan. All right, so our next trailer is a bit more notable, I think, for its song choice than for the trailer itself. Although it does look pretty solid. It is Artemis Fowl. This is Disney's adaptation of what is his name? Owen Colfer, who this one's about a 12-year-old criminal mastermind named Artemis Fowl, who kidnaps a fairy for a large ransom of gold. And after multiple attempts by fairy police, basically some stuff goes down. It's in order to restore the family fortune. I read this book years ago. I think I still have it somewhere, but maybe not. I'm trying to, because I operate by my bookshelf, so I'm trying to see if I can see it. I think I might see it right there. So I might go back through it at some point. I remember enjoying it. It's been like maybe 10 years, something like that, more than that maybe, since I've read this, but I did enjoy it. I never read any of the other books. I think that there were like, 6 or 7 others. There's 8 books in all. So, and then a bunch of graphic novels. So we'll see, but I just have to say, it looks like a solid production. And by the way, this, comes out, and it's directed by Kenneth Branagh. Speaking of Kenneth Branagh, and it's written by the guy who wrote Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is pretty interesting. So, because that was the one screenwriter who didn't do any of the other Harry Potter movies. So it looks really solid, but I have to commend Disney for using a song choice that I did not expect. It's I always love when trailers bring out the Radiohead, but I did not expect them to bring out sort of a deep track from their latest album, A Moon-Shaped Pool, from a couple of years ago, a song called Deck's Dark that is absolutely haunting and beautiful. It's one of the best songs on that album, but it's not one that's had really any radio time. So I just have to commend the fact that they went that route. This one's got a pretty impressive cast. It's got newcomers in the lead roles, but it's also got Hong Chow, straight off Downsizing, which she gave one of the best performances of that year, I thought, and it's an interesting choice. Josh Gad's in this, Judi Dench. So I'm excited to see this. I just have to commend them for making such a striking trailer song choice. A song choice can make or break a trailer, and people should definitely not underestimate that. So I like this trailer a lot. I think it's quite good. We'll see how it fares. What did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I like the trailer. It's not anything that has blown me away. The thing is with like Disney live action nowadays, I have not been impressed in a very, very long time. And I'm talking like not Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, Disney anime. I'm talking just strictly just Disney brand live action. I have not been impressed in a very long time. But this looks like a lot of fun. I never read the books because I'm not a reader. Surprise, surprise. But I think with Kenneth directing this and bringing back some of his Murder on the Orient Express actors into it is really nice. That means he liked working with them. But yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. Definitely one of the more looked forward to live action Disney movies in a while, just because I just haven't been impressed by the trailers of the live action stuff, and maybe this will turn it around for me. So that's kind of where I'm at. So the next,
I really hope, by the way, that this is not another like Golden Compass situation, because that movie was good for me. But anyway, yeah, we'll see if it can set itself apart from something like that or Mortal Engines or whatever, and actually become a success. That's what
I think it's going to be a 50-50 shot, because with Disney live action, it's either going to be like a hit or an extreme miss. Like Disney live action are rarely like in the middle of the road in terms of box office and quality. So I mean,
just look at Nutcracker.
Right? Yeah, that movie flopped hard.
Flop. Yeah,
exactly. And then you have stuff like a Christopher Robin, where it was like, okay, I guess that was like the first like moderate success it had in a while. But then you look at like A Wrinkle in Time, that flopped.
Of course,
the Pirates movie. Yeah, the Pirates movies might dip in quality, but they do well in box office. So Disney live action is a weird thing. Speaking of Disney live action, this comes from their sub studio Marvel, and we have the first trailer. Which, by the way, I gotta say, Marvel has got some of the biggest cojones I've ever seen in my life, because they dropped the trailer and they just call it Marvel Studios Avengers official trailer.
Yeah.
So they are so confident that they know you're going to see it, to where people know what it is, and they didn't have to put the actual title in the description. So that's just crazy.
I can imagine that basically when they were uploading the trailer, somebody had a maniacal laugh when they put just Marvel Studios Avengers official trailer.
Yeah, it's crazy, because they're just like, well, we know everyone's going to see it regardless. Yes. And that's what's so cool about the Marvel brand, is that since we are 20 movies deep now, people know what this is, and that's just such a strong like brand recognition that many studios wish they had. So I got to give Kevin Feige all the props, because he's done it, and he still does it with stuff like this. The teaser trailer for Avengers Endgame, yes, Avengers 4 is called Avengers Endgame, dropped a couple days ago. And so Joel and I were looking forward to it, obviously, and we watched it, and we are going to, review the next trailer for you guys and all that stuff. And before we move on to Captain Marvel next, Joel, I want you to, surprise people with a specific movie that we are not going to watch trailers for that actually involves these movies, but we'll get to that in just a second. But the Avengers Endgame teaser trailer, this is a perfect representation of what a teaser trailer should be. It captures tone, it captures some of the characters and kind of where they're at. This trailer, I think Joel and Brian and myself agree. We are literally seeing the first 10-15 minutes. They are keeping a lot of stuff hidden from us, which is great considering the events that took place in Infinity War. Perfect teaser. I love the way it opened. I love the way that we probably saw Tony's death. Like that's going to be a precursor to him either getting saved at the last second or actually dying in space, which is devastating. But it definitely looks a lot, which I didn't think was possible. It looks a lot darker than Infinity War, but I do like the fact that they're able to play on kind of the broodiness and the darkness throughout the trailer, but then you got good old Scott Lang coming in and having a little bit of optimism, which was a great segue to the title reveal, because it was the Avengers A, in parts coming together, and then it said Avengers Endgame, and so that is basically representing it. Yes, this is going to be a dark chapter, but the Avengers are going to all come together one last time to see if they can try to fix this mistake that they allowed to happen. So I just thought it was perfect, because I don't know anything else beyond what we saw. I kind of don't want to see anything else, but I'm going to anyways, just because we're going to not watch a certain other movie, so I kind of need to watch this one. But I think this is a fantastic teaser, and I love the score in it. I really hope throughout the movie, just like with Infinity War, I hope they take like attributes of the original Avengers score and kind of just kind of adapt it into this chapter. And from what I was hearing in the trailer, it sounded really epic. So yeah, man, I loved it. I can't stop watching it. I can't stop talking about it. And what blows my mind even more, this movie comes out in 4 months. Yeah. This movie comes out in 4 months. It's just crazy. So Joel, why do now I know this is going to be really tough for you because we have a huge audience. I think there's like over 50 million people that listen every single week. So I just want you to be very cautious to what you're going to say because Joel did not like the trailer. He said that superhero movies are for dum-dums and babies, and I just want to know like why he has such hatred for this movie and this genre.
They're lunchbox pail movies. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
No, I'm seriously trying to figure out a way this trailer could have been more perfect, and I'm coming up empty because this is perfectly played. It's one to get this right out of the bat, and I have no actual proof of this, but I'm pretty sure it is. This is an excellent bit of misdirection because I have a feeling that almost none of this plays out in the way that we see.
No, it's really not going to. They're going to do the situation they did with Infinity War with like that end shot with the group running and Hulk is running and you're like, yep. Cool, I can't wait to see that in the movie. And of course it wasn't in there, but I didn't feel like it was sabotaged in
in the editing.
Yeah, in the editing because it was that shot was still there. There was just little pieces missing that didn't really affect the story, so it didn't bother me.
Instead of the Hulk, it was just Bruce Banner and the Hulkbuster.
Correct.
and running. Yeah, it was a great bit of misdirection, and I feel like that's happening here. There's even a theory going around. I saw it this morning on Twitter that the last scene, the one with Scott, where he's at the front door and he's yelling, and we see Captain America and Black Widow kind of reacting to the attempt to get in. There's this theory going around that while all of those things are happening, none of those things are happening to each other, so that they're actually watching something else entirely, and they're not actually watching Scott come into the thing. And also it's the front door line is fake. There's a theory about that going on, and I could believe it. I think that one might not be so believable just because of the fact that there are expressions to contend with on the faces of Captain America and Black Widow that I don't think, because the trailer makes it clear that everybody thinks that Scott Lang was turned into dust, just to kind of give away. But they think that he's turned to dust. We see briefly what I'm pretty sure is a presumed dead file. So you have probably all the people who are on Titan that nobody can account for, like Peter. I think that we briefly see Shuri's face, so it may be that they think that that maybe that she was turned to dust, or they think that she was, and most prominently is Scott. So I think that they're thinking that he's gone because he, at the time of as we learn at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Sorry, spoilers for everybody. He's in the quantum realm. So I think that it's interesting because. I just can't figure out a way that they could have played this more perfectly. They kind of lead in with this really emotional scene where Tony's in a ship. I don't know what ship though, because as somebody said, that's not the ship that Nebula came in, and it's not the ship that he came in with Doctor Strange and Peter Parker.
It might have been the ship that the Guardians came in when they landed on Titan.
Yeah, it could be actually. Yeah, come to think of it, that might have been because the shape. Yeah, okay, yeah, it was because the shape was familiar to me, and it's the one that the first time we see the Guardians in Infinity War, they're flying in that. Yeah. So yeah, so that's their ship. Anyway, whatever the case, and of course they're all gone now. So or for now, so nobody's using it. Might as well. And you have this really emotional scene where he's kind of accepted the fact that. I mean, it's really stark. And that was not an intended pun. It's really, really stark because he actually says food and water ran out 4 days ago. I mean, can you imagine what kind of degree of completely out of it he is without any sustenance? It's insane, and oxygen's going to be out by tomorrow morning. I mean, they really set that up to be a hopeless situation, and yeah, it's just crazy, and it just plays everything so perfectly. It introduces the fact that I mean, brings back Ronan, or I should say, it brings back Hawkeye, who is now Ronan, clearly Ronan because of the way he seems to enter that frame. Um, it's just the perfect teaser for something so apocalyptic. And they put out two really good teasers this week. We're about to get to the other one, or trailers, I should say. We're about to get to the other one, but this is my favorite trailer of the week in general, because of how emotional and genuinely emotional it is, without seeming like it was astonishing what happened at the end of Infinity War. And I think that the way to reckon with that is with a teaser trailer that acknowledges the characters kind of coming to terms with what's happened. And, but first you have to have them in a state of shock. And I think that this trailer lives in that state of shock. I think that we're seeing the total, like, there's an element of disbelief to it. There's an element of kind of coming to terms with it. And I think that this trailer just does a superb job of conveying all of that.
Just briefly, what did you think of Thanos using his armor as a scarecrow?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, the implications in that,
right?
Right? The things that scarecrows represent, it's incredible, and he's absolutely putting it up there to represent that exact thing that scarecrows do. And it's just it's for fear. It's sort of a Jungian archetype of all of that. It's just really, really excellent. So yeah, I mean, and we see his hand. He's still wearing the gauntlet.
It is definitely fused onto his skin permanently.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. So I can't wait. We'll be doing in a few weeks our most anticipated, and this is going to be high on that list. So
Joel, speaking of the wonderful characters that we may or may not see in this movie, what is a movie, just real quick before we get to Captain Marvel, that is coming out a couple of months after Avengers that we are actually not going to see any marketing for because it takes place after Avengers Endgame, and we kind of want to be surprised. What is that?
Right. So, next week we're reviewing a movie where we had watched this for completely separate reasons, but it's an important thing to bring up. Mortal Engines is a movie that we've only seen the teaser trailer for. We were, intrigued enough by that. We were like, oh man, I don't want to see anything else because there was so much interesting about that. So we're doing another experiment. We are. I may be going way overboard on that next year, and I'll tell you why later on in the episode. But yeah, so we're doing the same thing with Spider-Man: Far From Home, which the trailer was reportedly supposed to drop yesterday. I know that it was shown at a Brazilian convention, and so people have seen it. And I've read kind of like a brief description of what's in it, but I don't want to see it because of the fact that right now Spider-Man is the dust in the air. So I don't want to know what happened. And it's stupid that Sony would put out a trailer right now. It's supposed to now come out on the 18th, but I don't want to watch it. And I think that it's better. Honestly, I'm going to plead with you listeners, please don't watch it. I mean, we watch trailers, as part of the show's makeup. And we're going to tell you, and that's what we're doing right now. We're telling you right now, we're not going to cover that trailer because why would we? It's taking place after a movie where we don't know the fates of these characters. We don't know why Spider-Man should be still on Earth and why this movie should exist and why any of this is happening.
And Joel, you know what's going to be the really sad part is that when you and I both see Aquaman, it's probably going to play in front of it, and we're going to have to close our eyes and cover our ears.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I've been doing whenever Mortal Engines plays in front of a movie. Because I guess I'll then hear the trailer because it's impossible to not hear stuff in a theater. But yeah, I'll just close my eyes because honestly, closing your eyes takes away a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll recognize a lot of voices, but I won't see anything. So there's physical or visual context that I'll miss, and thank goodness. But yeah, anyway. So great trailer, and we're moving on to another really good trailer. Captain Marvel. Y'all might have heard of this. It's of course Brie Larson's take on the character, and this one we get to be thrown back in the 90s. We get to see, both-eyed Nick Fury. It's a really solid trailer. It introduces the whole idea behind this character pretty well. Introduces the villain played by Jude Law really well, and I think that it looks like a solid piece of entertainment for sure. I will say too that for the character being the most powerful potentially in all of Marvel history, they really proved that in the final couple of shots where she's kind of in her zone, blasting people away with her energy source, which is, I'm assuming, in her hands, kind of blasting away aliens and essentially glowing. It's her eyes are glowing, her hair's all standing on end. It's a really striking bit of action choreography, and I can't wait to see that in context. So I'm really excited for two of next year's Marvel movies. I can't with any particular confidence say that I'm excited for Far From Home, just because it just has such a weird sense of baggage in my mind that it's opening only 2 months after a movie whose outcome is completely unknown right now. I can't say that I'm excited for Far From Home. Obviously, some degree of me is excited because I loved Homecoming, but I'm really excited for the first two from Marvel. I think that Captain Marvel and especially Avengers Endgame look excellent. So I'm really I'm excited for both. What did you think of the Captain Marvel trailer?
Yeah, I really liked it. It's a lot of fun. It looks like you said, it showcases how powerful she is, especially with that end bit, just like her flying through flying objects and just destroying them. And I think the one thing I'm really excited for, if Joel, if you don't mind if I get super geeky for a second, is the
nerd. I'm just kidding.
Right, is the fallout of this movie. Because I'm going to make a prediction. I think there's going to be 2 end credit scenes, and one of them is going to be the obvious, and she's going to receive her pager message that Nick Fury left at the end of Infinity War.
Yeah, they have to book in that.
Yeah, they have to. And the second one,
actually, I think that's going to be the second one. I think that's going to be the very end one.
It's going to be the end stinger. And so the mid one, I love this. I love the idea of this. I could be completely wrong, by the way. But here's what I'm thinking. Because Skrulls are the main villain in this movie, and there is a comic line where the Skrulls came down, and there was a super big war between Skrulls and the Marvel heroes and people. And it was a huge war in this storyline. And so what I'm thinking is that Captain Marvel thinks she's going to kill them all. There's going to be 1 or 2 that escape somehow, and the end credit scene is going to be we're going to see them morph into a Marvel hero, or kind of blend in with society and be something that we've seen before. So I think that's going to be kind of creepy to know that whatever they morph into is probably going to be a character or someone that we have seen throughout all of these movies, and it's like, oh my god, like this Skrull has been kind of planted in every single movie, and we had no idea, because that's the whole Skrull's purpose, is to blend in with society and be like a Mystique, if you will. And so I'm really excited to kind of know like which ones escape, and which one is going to morph into whoever that we've seen before. So I don't know, that gets me excited. I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but it'd be cool if it is.
what I wish is something like that would be included in the movie.
And that might be the
maybe
case
at
too.
the end, right before the credits roll.
Yeah.
Because what I want to happen, what I want to have happen, is the middle of the trailer, or the middle of the credits, catch us up on who's been turned to dust.
Right.
Because I think that we need to know this stuff before we head into Endgame.
Yes.
And it just kind of show us like, oh, you know what? Maybe even better is have that be maybe do what you're saying with the Skrulls, and then also at the end, the bookend to the Nick Fury stinger at the end of Infinity War is a big elongated scene of her witnessing a bunch of people being turned to dust, and that's maybe intercut with all the characters that we know that we don't know the fates of. They're kind of learning their fates. Discovering what's happened to them, because again, we don't know what happened to Pepper, we don't know what happened to Aunt May, we don't know what happened to Happy Hogan. It's just we need to know that stuff. I have a feeling that they're gonna catch us up to that point, and maybe the end stinger can be kind of that deal where all of this stuff happens and then it kind of cuts to her and her direct surroundings of who's disappearing, and then she gets to pager the thing and jumps into action, or is woken up if she's like, I don't know, something where she comes back into it, because clearly there's 20 years we gotta 28 years or whatever we gotta account for in the timeline. But yeah, it's gonna be really interesting for sure. I can't wait.
I have the same implications as I said about the first teaser. It just looks like a great blend of Guardians and Thor, and I couldn't be happier about that. So
yeah.
All right, so moving on to the next trailer is something I know Joel is super excited to talk about.
Yeah.
So this one is the sequel to Happy Death Day, and this one's called Happy Death Day to You, like two, the number 2, and then you, just you. So that's what we're dealing with, and here's what the plot says from IMDb. This is one of the most exciting plots I've read in a long time. Are you ready? Sequel to the 2017 film Happy Death Day. That's actually what it says, but right below it, if you read further, it does say this. 2 years after the events of the first film, the main character re-enters the time loop again to determine why she was entered into it in the first place. She must also face a revenge-seeking Lori who has been resurrected by the power of the time loop. Now, the first Happy Death Day, I actually really liked a lot. It was very stupid, but I had such a fun time watching that in the theater. A horror version of Groundhog Day, sign me up. What I like about this trailer is they revealed the killer and the ending of the first film as if you've already seen it. Like, what if someone had not seen it and they're just like
me, for instance, me, because I saw this against my will in front of, I think it's been a while actually. I think I saw this in front of maybe Halloween.
Oh yeah, that would make sense because that's a Blumhouse movie.
Yeah, I think that's when I saw it, and then it finally came around and was posted on the internet. But it's been like 2 months since I saw this trailer, and I still remember it because I remember being, so that's who that was. I mean, it's not really surprising to me,
Yeah, it was one of those twists that was just like, ooh, the killer was her friend the entire time. It's like, okay, cool. It's like when have we not seen that in a horror movie?
Right.
But
I mean, that's what Scream was about. But anyway,
yeah, exactly. But no, I like the trailer. It's something that doesn't make any sense, but I cannot wait to watch it. Like, I want to know why this time loop has started. I want to know why she was the killer. I want to know why she's been picked. And you know what? If Christopher Landon can give me some stupid reason, I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to sit there with candy, popcorn, and just enjoy the crap out of this movie. This is one of those movies that, on its surface, it just doesn't make any sense. But you know what? I had such a fun time watching the first one, and I want to see the reasoning behind this time loop, even if it's the stupidest thing you've ever heard of. So Christopher Landon, Blumhouse, give it to me. I want to see it. And I will also comment on the fact that I'm kind of impressed they got all the actors to come back, all the same set pieces and everything. It literally looks like an exact replica of the first one. And so I know that's not easy to do when you're making a movie, so kudos to that. But yeah, it was just one of those horror films to where it's unlike because I saw it in the same year, unlike a Bye Bye Man where that was just dumb, the acting was poor, it was written poorly, and it's just something I didn't really care about.
Yeah, same simple concept kind of setup.
Yeah, it's like a simple concept setup, but I think the reason why Happy Death Day worked for me is not because of the story. I do like myself some very cheesy PG-13 slasher films, but it was the concept, it was the editing, it was the fact that it kept going at this rate and it kept staying fresh. It didn't become stale. It was just one of those movies that as it kept going and going deeper down the rabbit hole, I just found myself to be entertained by it, and that's a testament to the editing. So
it's easy to devalue commitment to a concept, and that's what like something like the Bye Bye Man totally like reneged on, because it was a concept that could work easily. It was a good concept, and it was just the crappiest version of that concept. And I'm not surprised to hear that Happy Death Day works. Everything about that first movie's trailer, from just the use of the great "Into Club" by 50 Cent, great song. It's a great song to set a mood about this is kind of college life and it's wild and crazy, and now this crazy stuff's going to happen, and they set it against this song. It's a great trailer. I missed it, and honestly though, like, I agree with you about this trailer, because this has convinced me to finally actually watch the first movie.
Finally, Joel, thank you. I've been telling you this for over a year now.
I'm probably not. We're not going to review this that week, because that week is the week that Alita: Battle Angels comes out. So it's that's the big one. But I will see it at home. I will watch both at home. I'm sure of it, and I think that I'm excited now, because it is a clever trailer. It looks like it's kind of this time loop is looping in on itself, and it looks very self-reflexive in that way, and self-referential. It looks fun. It looks stupid, but it looks fun.
Like, Joel, I can't wait for you to watch it, and I'm literally going to get this text from Joel word for word. He's going to be like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I had such a fun time watching it. I'll be like, you know what? I agree.
Now, it is a horror movie that looks dumb in all the stupid ways.
Oh, God.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I was basically looking for filler. I probably shouldn't even put this in there. But our next one is Pledge. This comes out in January from IFC Midnight, which means that it's going to get one theater in LA or something, and then be put on VOD. It looks so stupid. It's basically, these people come to be pledged by a fraternity, and it turns out that the fraternity members are all basically John from Jigsaw. It's just so stupid. All the acting looks terrible, and it looks like it was shot on the cheap. It just yeah. So let's get past this one. What did you think?
Well, first of all, because I like to retain a relationship with the studios, IFC, we typically get stuff from them, so I actually can't wait to watch this. So with that being said, this trailer is awful. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be so stupid and dumb, but I think the one thing that kind of irritated me the most is that we have seen Pledge movies so many times to where you can try to make them different, but they ultimately all come out the same. Like, whether you make it more of a drama, like that movie, what was it, Goat? That came out literally last year. And it's like, how many more movies do we have to have of pledges, being tortured and all that stuff? It's just, this one takes, like Joel said, more of like the Saw route, and it doesn't even look entertaining on that level. It just
looks incredibly visually ugly.
It does. It's just it's all greens and like blues and blacks, and you're like, I can't even tell what's going on half the time.
At this point, low budgets are no excuse. You can do a lot with a low budget, and it looks like these people have done the bare minimum, and it looks less than something on TV. It doesn't even look like it's up to TV level.
Well, and like, I typically like appreciate IFC Midnight movies because they are balls to the wall, like really like gruesome horror films, but like they understand the entertainment, like kind of midnight aspect value to it. This just doesn't even have it. It's just kind of like, hey, we needed a movie to fill a slot next year. Here you go.
Yeah, they have some good ones. There's this movie from earlier this year. I think that you would like it actually. It's kind of this dark fable called Wildling. It had Bel Powley and Brad Dourif, and it was good. And it came from IFC Midnight. They're able to stumble upon good content, but it just this clearly is not.
No,
Unless we see it and like it, I guess. But it's just yeah, it does not look good, and the performances are going to be something to try to get over because they're really bad, at least on the basis of this trailer. It's bad stuff. So, yeah, all right. So take us into this last trailer.
So this last trailer, just to spoil it for you, is my favorite trailer of the week. You might have thought it was Avengers Endgame, which is definitely up there. But if you're
for me, if it is an Endgame, it's this. So
exactly,
it's kind of tie between the two. Yeah.
Exactly. It's one of those movies that when Joel sent me the link, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like one of those like throwaway movies, kind of like a Pledge, where it's just like, okay, it's there. It doesn't look really exciting. Oh my God, I was so wrong. I will be glad to admit I was probably the most wrong on this trailer in terms of judging a book by its cover. This is such a great trailer. And this is also a prime example as to how editing a trailer is an art form. Because this movie could be the worst movie that Joel and I see next year, but the editing in this trailer has convinced me it's going to be a good movie. And that's the great thing about trailer editing. It's supposed to manipulate you into thinking a certain thing, and this does that. It made me think that this is going to be such a tight-knit, really just great thriller that's going to keep the suspense levels up throughout the entire time and not let go. It's the type of film that's going to, strike you, hold you by the throat, and not let go until its final breaths of the credits. And I absolutely love that. So what is this movie? Because you're probably thinking, like, what are you talking about? So it's called The Standoff at Sparrow Creek. And this one tells the story of there's a mass shooting that happens in this town, and the prime weapon that was used was an AK-47, and all these militiamen kind of get together in the little club or whatever, and they realize one of their AKs is missing. And so they kind of try to figure out, like, if it was someone within their group that committed this mass shooting, and, there's a former cop that's involved in this militia group now, and so there's a lot of moving parts going on, and it's got a great cast to where you don't really know their names, but like you see their faces. You
definitely know their faces.
You know their faces, and
yes, it's great character actors.
Yeah,
great character actors.
Whether it be James Badge Dale or Patrick Fischler or Brian Garrity, I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Garrity.
Yeah,
and also Chris Mulkey, you'd know his face. He's like in everything. He's a great actor. He's, I think, the oldest one. He's the one you'd know his face. I'm not good at describing faces, but he's the oldest of this group by quite a few years. And yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. Yeah. So anyway,
it's just
great
that, it's just that. Type of cast where you go, okay, I recognize that person, but I didn't even care because I was so riveted by the story and just the because this basically just looks like an hour and a half of interrogations, and I'm totally down for that. Where like this gun's gonna go missing, and they're gonna be like, all right, who did it? And they're like, I didn't do it, and they're all gonna just grill each other to where I'm suspecting that the third act is just going to be an explosive act, which is great. It's just going to ratchet up that tension and just explode on screen, and it just looks like a really great kind of, Alfred Hitchcockian thriller if he were to make movies of today's time, because this also kind of deals with the problem we have in this country with like mass shootings and the guns being used that are used to cause these mass shootings, which is, for the most part, the AK-47. So there is that kind of modern take on this too. And so there's a lot of moving parts within this that I really enjoy. And as a piece of editing of a trailer, it is outstanding. And I don't know if I told Joel this, but I'll tell you guys this. I'm a sucker for any trailer that uses the ticking of a clock to use as its editing kind of engine, if you will. And so I'm a sucker for it. If you can do it correctly, I'm just like, yeah, tick that clock, baby. Like, what's the countdown going to go to? So Yeah, I absolutely love the trailer. It's between this and Avengers Endgame. I might edge this one up because this one came out of nowhere and just completely floored me.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It looks kind of looks Fincher-like in some ways. The visual scheme particularly reminded me of something that David Fincher would apply to a movie. It doesn't look quite as elaborately plotted as a Fincher movie, but it does look really tense. Looks really well acted. I love James Badge Dale. Been a fan of his since 24. Back in I think it was 2004. He was in the third season. Had a great role, and he's just kind of come up as this great character actor in the past few years. He's been in stuff like Iron Man 3 and The Lone Ranger, and he's really good. And so yeah, really really strong trailer. I was surprised. I had not heard of this movie before watching the trailer, and it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Which is amazing because it premiered at TIFF, and we hear about all those movies that premiere there.
Right? Yeah, it must have been one of those that kind of got lost in the in the rest of the other movies. But all right, so guys, we're shifting into our reviews, and our first review is the one that we share, and that is Green Book. This is the latest movie from director Peter Farrelly, who of course usually works with his brother Bobby on comedies like There's Something About Mary and Dumb and Dumber and Kingpin, but here takes a shift to the dramatic, or to sort of the dramatic, in the story of Frank Vallelonga, known as Tony Lip to his friends, who is kind of a bouncer for a club and is asked one day to drive a black pianist named Dr. Donald Shirley, played by Mahershala Ali, and of course Viggo Mortensen plays Vallelonga. This takes place this is to take place in the Deep South of the 1960s, before the Civil Rights Voting Act of 1964. And so essentially it's kind of an experiment on Shirley's part, because he wants to kind of return or give some sort of credence to the South's view of black people, as first of all not a person who grew up in the South. He grew up in the North, and so these two kind of join forces on this road trip with Vallelonga driving and Shirley riding in the back on this concert tour through the Deep South. All right, so I made it kind of clear when this trailer came out that I was not a fan of it. That was one of our more infamous disagreements in terms of trailers, Chase. You thought it was really good, and I thought that the trailer cut the film to make it look kind of like a Blind Side crash-style disaster. I was not a fan, and I'm happy to say that I was, for the most part, wrong. It definitely isn't a subtle movie. There's a lot of blunt filmmaking here. It's cinematography and stuff isn't much above a TV movie, but I'm glad to say that I was mostly wrong. It's quite a good movie, and I'm just going to go ahead and let you start with your review.
Yeah, so, as Joel alluded to, the trailer disagreement was one of the bigger disagreements we had. I did think it looked pretty well done, and I was excited to see what Peter Farrelly would do, because I don't know if you guys know this, but a little insight into my film taste, Dumb and Dumber is my favorite comedy of all time. I absolutely love that movie. It still makes me laugh to this day, and the sequel can go burn in a dumpster. But that's neither here nor there. But the original, and even with
Farrelly's lost his way, in other words, kind of as a comic director.
Yeah, he's definitely lost his way, but I mean, not necessarily. Like this movie does have those moments, and we'll get to that. Well, but he definitely was really.
I meant as a strictly comic.
Oh yeah, strictly comic for sure. Dumb and Dumber 2 is just it's one of those prime examples to where like
movie 43.
Oh god, yeah. The fact that they're a part of that just is also baffling that he would make this as well. But Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, which Joel finally saw earlier this year for the first time.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, it's such a great comedy, and that
and Kingpin I watched for the first time this year too. I think it was really early in the year.
Yeah,
so
like Kingpin, and like even with like Me, Myself, and Irene, I like that one. And so I just think they were the type of filmmakers that really struck gold in that specific time frame, and they haven't really rekindled their comedy, so to speak, since then. Because, like I said, Dumb and Dumber 2 was it was an embarrassment on all fronts, especially after Jeff Daniels won the Emmy, literally right before that, but, whatever. So, going into this, I was like, okay, so what is one half of the Farrelly Brothers going to do? Like, are they going to make this into a slapsticky type of comedy? Are they going to implement the dramatic weight to it and be more of a blend? Is it going to be, more drama? Like, how are they going to portray this? And so what I thought Peter Farrelly did was really kind of take his sensibilities as a director that he had with his brother on Dumb and Dumber and implement it into this. And it's like Joel said, it's not like a visually striking movie. This is more about the characters and the story, because it does kind of look a little non-theatrical, if you will. But, I'll let that slide because the story was engaging. I do like the fact that he took his road trip buddy movie sensibilities, applied it to this, and made Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali have wonderful chemistry together, even with their personalities clashing on screen most of the time. They still had this camaraderie that was really kind of infectious to see, because Viggo Mortensen had such an energy about him. Mahershala Ali had such a somberness about his character, but it just worked in harmonious fashion to where I was like, okay, this is definitely the Dumb and Dumber part of his directing style, with the whole road trip thing and the comedy from Viggo Mortensen's character and even Mahershala Ali's kind of sarcasm a little bit. All that was there. And then when you shift over to more of the dramatic weight and the racial insensitivities, I thought that was also handled well for the most part. It's like Joel said, it's not like a deep movie that gets into racism or segregation. It's a really kind of blunt movie sometimes. It really just kind of gets in your face and just kind of moves on type of movie about racism, but I still thought they were effective because of the performances and the ability of the actors to sell me on what was going on. There was even one scene where, Mahershala Ali's character, he tells Viggo Mortensen that he doesn't fit in with any community. He doesn't fit in with the rich community, black community, white community. He feels like an outcast, and like there were several moments where you just feel so bad for him. And once again, that comes across through the performances. But going back to Peter Farrelly for a second, I like the fact that the movie was structured the way it was, and the fact that they took this road trip from point A to point B, because not only did it show the growth and progression of the road trip, but it showed the growth and progression of how intense the racism got and the growth of Viggo Mortensen's character. Because he wasn't a loud racist at the beginning of the movie, but he was definitely the type of racist that was very subtle and got under the skin of his wife quite a bit. But towards the end of the movie, like he becomes very great friends with Mahershala Ali, and you can really sense that bond and that friendship. And he grows so much as a person just on this road trip that I think is really quite powerful, because a lot of people that are racist or think this way, they are very closed-minded people. They live in the same city or the same town for all their life. They don't go out and explore things. And so I think with that road trip, it was very crucial and very essential to his character, to where I thought that growth from point A to point B on the road trip was really great as a progression, as well as the characters. So, I think Peter Farrelly did a pretty fantastic job. And to go on to the writing a little bit, because he was one of the writers, I thought the movie was quite funny. It was the type of movie that had such a very welcoming presentation to it in terms of its dialogue and its characters, and it was very crowd pleasing. I mean, Joel and I saw this together, and the crowd loved it. It was definitely funny. At some points, at a couple points where Joel was cackling. I've never heard that man cackle next to me as loud as he did in some parts for Green Book, which I did too, especially from Viggo Mortensen's character. But also, I love the huge amount of heart to it, even if it doesn't really play off in more of a, like kind of Joel said, a non-blunt way to tell the racism and the segregation. I still thought the movie had a lot of heart to it, and definitely characters I would love to see on a road trip again. So that is definitely something to take away from it. To go back on the humor a little bit, I will say that I like Viggo Mortensen's performance quite a bit, and he really sells this person as a person, because this is based on real life people, to where I didn't really see him in the role like Viggo Mortensen. But I will say that, with his humor did come an accent that was borderline cartoonish, and he was riding that thin line, but I think he did well for the most part. But yeah, to go off into the performances, Mahershala Ali, once again, fantastic. He's just the type of actor to where, once he won that Oscar for Moonlight, he's just been, kind of knocking it out of the park ever since. And I do have a bit of an issue with the marketing a little bit on the poster. If Mahershala Ali is the one that won the Oscar, he needs to be front billing. I don't care if Viggo Mortensen has more clout than he does. Ali has.
It's also about contracts.
I know it's all about contracts, but it's like he's the one that won the Oscar. You put him above the nominee. I'm just saying. So to kind of branch off from the performances, I thought the supporting cast did pretty well. Linda Cardellini, nice little role she had. Everyone else that you kind of meet on this road trip, whether it be the kind of nicer people that they come across, or even some of the more disgusting, racists out there. I thought everyone was really committed to their role and really kind of sold the part for me. And then, the music was quite fitting. It's one of those things to where, like, I kind of have to stop my review, because beyond that, it's like Joel said, it's not really visually striking. It's not really that powerful. It's just a really good crowd-pleasing type of movie, and there's nothing really wrong with that. It's not going to personally go in my top 10.
Right. Yeah, not mine either.
Yeah, exactly. But I really, really like it, and I'm going to give it a B+. And I would only give it that plus because of Viggo and Mahershala's performances, because if it was not them, I don't think the movie would have been near as good, and it might have been more of a Lifetime movie. But they were able to elevate it to a slightly better than TV movie, but it still has those qualities. But I will say this before I hand it over to Joel. It may not make my top 10, and I gave it a high grade, but so what? I gave a lot of movies a B's and B pluses this year, but I really wish people would calm down on people hating on this movie. I don't understand where the hate's coming from, because I know the National Board of Review named it as their favorite movie of the year. Okay, that's one group that named it their favorite of the year. Everyone's going to have difference of opinion. I don't see why this would be a controversy if this was someone's favorite. I'm not going to argue against them. Like, yeah, it was a really good movie. It's not, a great movie to me that left an impact. But in the moment, for that 2 hour and 10-minute runtime, or however long it was, I was thoroughly entertained. It was a very entertaining movie that did have some very mature stuff in it that was nice to have in there. But I had a good time watching it. And so if it is on someone's list, do not go after them. I don't understand where this backlash is coming from. It's just like with The Star Is Born. I love that movie. I'm going to tell you guys right now, spoiler alert, it's not my top 10. But I love that movie. But if you want to put it in your top 10, I don't understand why people should cause this wave of backlash. It just makes no sense to me. So B+ for me for Green Book. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So if you want a good crowd-pleasing movie with some really funny moments, some really great dramatic moments as well, and some great performances, I suggest you check this out. And to be honest with you, I hope Peter Farrelly does more stuff like this, and I think if this is a representation of what he can do outside of just doing comedies, then I'm looking forward to his future. So this is definitely the movie that will make me forget, just temporarily, make me forget that he did movie 43 and was a part of that, but for right now, he's on the right track.
And then it'll revisit your nightmares.
No. Good Lord. I paid money to see that in theaters, by the way.
Oh, boy. Okay, so I could probably provide a little bit of insight into why it's kind of been put into some target sites in terms of its response. It's another movie, and it undeniably is this thing. This is not a value judgment yet, but it is undeniably a movie about race seen largely through the perspective of a white person, and I think that kind of puts it into, again, just kind of puts it into the sights of people who don't think that that's a particularly wise perspective right now. I will say, though, that there's a difference between something being politically antiquated, which this movie is, and I'm going to get into that in a second, and something that's politically naive, because naive is a different thing entirely. If this movie was stupid about its politics, that would be one thing. I don't think it is. It's certainly a very old-fashioned movie, or comparatively old-fashioned movie to something like The Hate You Give or Blindspotting, or Black Klansman, or something that takes the perspective of a black individual. It's gonna be more antiquated than that, because there's simple matters of perspective there that aren't the same. They aren't the same, and so I think that that's why this is kind of being seen as this year's version of The Blind Side or Crash, two very naive movies about race, or that have racial elements in them that are naive. This is not the same thing as them, though, and I think that
the movie has good intentions, and I think people need to understand that.
I think it has better intentions, and I think it actually is found in one. Well, it's found all over, but it's found specifically in one scene that I found quite striking.
When they pull over and he gets out of the car.
Yeah. So it speaks even louder than something like when he's beaten up. In the bar, or something that's very, very like obvious. Oh my gosh, racism is wrong with all the words capitalized, which is what those scenes are saying, and that's why the movie is politically antiquated. But I don't think it's naive, and it's because of the fact that the movie includes this other scene, and I don't think it would include that scene unless, to some degree, it knew what it was doing. And basically, they've pulled over because something in the engine carriage is just failed, and so they have to kind of pull over, and the Mortensen character gets out to look at it. And meanwhile, they've been on a long drive, so the Ali character wants to get out to stretch his legs a little bit, and eventually notices that to his left is a plantation with slaves on it working, and he, a black man who has accrued some form of economic privilege, is looking upon those without it. And I think that it's basically the scene is conveying this idea of intersectionality, which is, I think that Jackson's been on to explain it some, but on a previous show, but he has the privilege of somebody with a great amount of money, but not the privilege of somebody with white skin. And I think he's coming to realize that he is not seen as any different than these people in this state, even though he has a lot of money in the North. It's just a different story. And I think that scene is kind of at the heart of this movie, mainly because we then get to see the lack of response that the Mortensen character has to the scene, because he then goes over, opens the door for him, kind of half-heartedly glances over at the plantation of workers, and then just drives off.
And he doesn't think anything of it.
He doesn't think anything of it. Exactly.
The time period, yeah.
Yeah, he knows about those plantations. He's also from the north, but he knows about those plantations. He probably expected it, and I think that it was maybe slightly less expected for the Ali character because of where he is economically, and it's something that he's unable to reconcile in his brain at that moment, and that moment is a very telling one. Um, and I think it's also very clearly in the performances from Mortensen and Ali. I mean, I agree with you about Mortensen's accent. I think that he leans a little bit heavily into it, but he's also playing a guy who is a cartoon. He just is one. He's loud, he's brash, and he has to be because he's a bouncer, and that's the role of him. Um, and I liked Ali too because when yeah, and quite a bit actually. He's able to convey this idea within this man that he wants to not, to use quotes around this phrase, act black. He doesn't want to have the lingo. He doesn't want to have the inflection or the tone. He wants to be what he feels is more dignified in his mind, which is something completely separate from a stereotype that is gradually forming about a black person in America. And I think that he does that really well through, this sort of high, more reedy voice that he adopts, and the properness of, kind of use it, like in one scene, using a blanket, um, and not wanting to get Kentucky Fried Chicken grease on the blanket. It's a really good performance from him, and I just I liked it a lot. I think that, to get into some of the other things, I like Fairley's approach. Like you said, it's essentially a racially tinged drama mixed with a road trip comedy, and I like that mix because that's what the story was. They were on this road trip and all of that. Now, there's been some reports that the screenplay, fudges a lot of the truth, in which case I would just reply that this is not a documentary.
What's that word, Joel? It starts with an A and ends with an adaptation. I can't think of the word, but I think you adapt it, and it's not going to be 100% true. It's a
Right.
weird word. I'll get to it in just a second.
And it's obviously partly because one of the screenwriters is the I think the grandson or the son of the Mortensen character, and so there's going to be a bit of a perspective thing there about the stories he was told, and so obviously that's going to be, there's going to be fudging of the truth because it's kind of a secondhand account of a biased account, in terms of just the fact that the younger Vallelonga, Nick Vallelonga, who co-wrote the screenplay, is not going to have the perspective that his dad had, and his dad's perspective is going to be slightly marred by the fact that it was in the moment, and so you're going to have all of these connections that don't perfectly come out to the truth, and it's inevitable about that. But we're here to review the story as it is told, or how it is told, and how it is told is quite well, quite good, and I think that. Yeah, I mean, like you, I think people need to calm down. It's not a great movie, but it's a well-meaning, and it's a genuinely good-hearted one, and I like that about it. It pulls at the heartstrings in fairly obvious ways, but sometimes it earns them, and I liked it. So I'm giving it a B. I think it's quite good. We definitely both had a good response to this. I think that we're both definitely in the bag for this. I think people should see it for sure.
And Joel, just real quick before you go over to the favorite, what was the number one thing that Vigo said in the movie that made you laugh the hardest? Because I'll tell you mine.
Oh, there's something where he's I think it's about the car. No. Was it?
It was about something... a specific. Was it a painter that he was trying to pronounce, or who was it?
Oh yes, it was the paint. No, it was the not painter. It was Chopin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where he calls him Joe Pan because he didn't really clearly hear what Shirley had said. Where he called him Joe Pan. Just funny. Chopin's a pianist. A famous,
yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, so a composer and all that. it just, yeah, it's really funny, and there's moments like that in the character of the Mortensen character that he just can't help it.
Well, it's like the
he's very forward in a lot of what he says, and
it's like the what was the TV spot that was when they get to the motel? I still laughed at it in the movie, and he's like, "Man, it looks like my ass." Like
yes,
like
that's what that's
me.
the other thing that made me cackle. I just yeah, it's really funny sometimes, and it's because of Farrelly's kind of refusal to shy away from the human nature of these characters. That one of them is very, very closed off from everybody else, and so he's a bit ridiculous in terms of that.
It also
comes off a bit ridiculous, and then the other guy's a total cartoon who
it works well because like you said, he's a total cartoon, and we laugh at some of the most ridiculous things that he says and does.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's got flaws, but we can kind of grow with him a little bit better. We can kind of empathize with him a little bit more. Than say someone that was just straight up a dick and a racist. It's like, well, this isn't
by the time they reach their venue the final venue that he's gonna play, which is a Christmas show, and literally the subject of the show can't eat with everybody else because he's black, and that scene is just great. It really plays out in this way that it kind of gets again to the heart of the movie. I think that scene and the stop off at the side of the road scene just both really speak to the heart of this movie. And it's a movie with a lot of heart. I liked it. It kind of reminded me. It kind of reminded me in a way of something like Remember the Titans, which took place in a similar era. There was similar stuff going on, or something like it's better than this. But what was that movie? It was Glory Road, where sports has been replaced by a concert tour, but it still sort of exists in that same arena where there's something going on, and the backdrop is the racial scene of the '60s, and we get a point of view of that's simplistic, but or simple, I guess simplistic in the same way, but not to the degree that I think a lot of people are calling it a disaster. And you're totally right. I'm a little baffled by the complete vilification of this movie. Is just a little ridiculous to me. I think it's perfectly fine. It's 10 times better than The Blind Side, which I don't like. I'm not a fan of that movie. I think it's one of the worst Best Picture nominees ever, just about that I've seen. Lower than Les Miserables, which I hate, and lower than Crash, which I hate. So I don't get it. I think it's perfectly fine. And it's a good movie too. So yeah. All right. So B for me, B+ for Mr. Lee, and I'm gonna be moving on to my review of The Favorite. Now, this one is the newest film from director Yorgos Lanthimos. Comes from who is the director of such films like Dogtooth and The Lobster and The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and those are the three of his films that I've seen. He's done other works. There was one between Dogtooth and The Lobster called Alps that I haven't seen, and he did two movies before Dogtooth that I haven't seen that are completely unavailable as far as I can see. But I've now seen four of them, and I can tell you right now that The Favorite is my favorite of his movies. And just put up with me with my stumbling into obvious puns regarding the title. It's just the title. So Chase, please don't burst into laughter if I call this my favorite something. Just do me that favor. I'm just kidding.
I can't promise you anything.
That was exactly the response that I suspected you would give. All right, guys, this is a great movie. I cannot wait to talk about this. So the plot of this one follows three women. Olivia Colman plays Queen Anne in early 18th century Britain, as Britain is at war with France. She's trying to finance it through taxes that are being suggested by a member of her parliament, played by Nicholas Hoult. Rachel Weisz plays Sarah, the Duchess of Marlborough, who is the Queen's confidant and advisor. And Emma Stone plays Abigail Hill, who is Sarah's cousin from a problematic branch of that family. The father gambled away a lot of their money, and so she's kind of been ostracized. But she's arrived at the court of Queen Anne to seek work and discovers. Well, okay, so it's a little tricky to know what plot to reveal here. There's a lot of surprises, but I'm going to throw caution to the wind and just say that Abigail discovers that the Queen's relationship with her advisor is maybe more than just a confidant and advisor. There's something else going on there, and she decides to use that for a bit of con artistry. And that's all I'm going to say. There's so much going on here. And that's maybe what through the first 45 minutes, it goes off on another several tangents for the next hour and 15 minutes. But guys, this movie is all in the barbs. It's all in the wicked dialogue between characters who are constantly trying to tear each other down. And this is pretty much Lanthimos kind of, weirdly enough, I think it's a warmer movie, despite the fact that it's about sarcastic characters trying to tear each other down. I think it's a warmer movie than his previous three that I've seen. Certainly warmer than Dogtooth, which was about an isolated family, and there's incest involved, and there's a bunch of weird stuff, lots of crazy, weird horror things. It's a really good movie. I would say maybe The Lobster is a bit warmer. A bit less warm than The Favorite, but a bit warmer than his other two that I've seen. That includes The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which definitely had a coldness to it, especially to the filmmaking because of the fisheye cinematography that he had employed. And he employs that again here, but I think to a story that confronts the tragedy of Queen Anne, who here is a frail and a frail woman whose body is failing her, and mind is even more so failing her. And meanwhile, you have these two women who are kind of at odds with each other in their quest to become the court favorite of the Queen and seek her approval and everything. Meanwhile, there's a couple of subplots that I won't get into. One involves a politically expedient marriage, and the other one involves an attempt to murder someone else that goes unexpectedly awry. And basically, this whole thing is just I described it on Facebook and on Twitter, I think, as Barry Lyndon, which is Stanley Kubrick's one of his best films from 1975, meets Love and Friendship, that film with Kate Beckinsale from a few years ago, directed by Whit Stillman, which was also about con artists. And you had Barry Lyndon was about power struggle at the top of, kind of regimes of a royal sort. And they've kind of come together, and then a bucket of acid is thrown on them. And I think that that's kind of the perfect description for something like this. It's just so devilish, kind of, that's the perfect word for it. It's kind of devious and devilish and incredibly entertaining. The production design on this movie is intimidatingly good. It is so seamless in its recreation of this era of Britain's high court. All the costumes and the makeup and the sets and the landscapes, it just remarkably vivid, and somehow the majesty of it isn't let down by the fact that, once again, Lanthimos and cinematographer Robbie Ryan, who's one of the great modern cinematographers, are employing the same fisheye cinematography, and also kind of canted wide angles from kind of the waist level, if it isn't fisheye. There's rarely a close-up in this, and when they happen, they count for the best. It's just there's this great kind of little scoff of it's in the trailer, but the context is even better. That Emma Stone has at one point that is one of the great recent close-ups. Um, anyway, it's just this story of jealousy and codependency and madness and just backstabbing and all of that. It's just so much fun. It's some of the most fun I've had watching a movie this year. But it also is a little bit more than that. There's again, we get to the tragedy of the Queen Anne character, um, who is just such a pathetic person. She's ruling by, like improvisational whim, essentially all the time. Uh, just kind of makes rulings whenever she feels like it, and holds off of really important rulings if she just doesn't have the head for them. And it's just, yeah, it's just this great story of these three women who are kind of losing control of things about their lives in this era where they have to constantly take back power from men who are repeatedly ruling them. And yeah, it's just a film full of great like dialogue comebacks. There's one setup, one exchange that I will only give the first two or three lines of it, but it's between Emma Stone and a character played by Joe Alwyn, who comes into her quarters one night and she says, "Are you here to seduce me or rape me?" He says, "I am a gentleman," and I'm not going to give away the the punchline, but it's probably the line of the year, and it actually is very topical to this year, in the current climate with Me Too and Time's Up. Um, it's great in that context, and it would just be a great comeback in general. But it does take on kind of this added bonus pleasurable thing. It's great, and it kind of reflects the movie at large. This movie about smart characters trying to outwit each other, and um, a great story of intelligence, told with intelligence and with a lot of humor, barbed, spiked humor, and visual wit. It's just fabulous. It's one of my favorite films of the year. I literally cannot figure out any sort of thing that I have wrong with this. And so, while that doesn't usually mean that I'm going to give something an A plus, I can't think of anything else to give this. I'm giving it an A plus. It's near the top of my list this year. I'll just give that away, I guess. But and as I told Chase yesterday, just add more you know you know pressure on him to see it and then knock something else off his list. But yeah, I mean, I had to knock some stuff off already, and this is just one of the reasons. It's one of the best films of the year, absolutely, no doubt. And I cannot wait for you to see it so that we can discuss it, because it's a pretty amazing movie, and I just loved every second. So an A plus for me. I assume that this means you're just dreading this. You're just dreading this movie. You're like, I just want to see second act with Jennifer Lopez and not this. I'm just kidding.
What are you, high? No, I'm looking forward to it. I've heard the best, like, kind of review, a little blurb I've heard about this movie is that as soon as this person walked out of the movie, they said, I immediately want to watch it again. And they watched it again, and then they got the screener, and then they said they saw it like 2 or 3 more times, and I'm like, oh wow, so this is going to be a very rewatchable movie, and I can't wait.
It is incredibly rewatchable. It's just the rhythms and the textures are absolutely one of those things where you just have to jump right back into it to witness it all again. And I feel like this is one of those movies you could get something out of every time, and that's something different, I should say, out of it every time, and that's the mark of a great movie. It really is. You watching a movie for the first time and then coming at it again and finding something else. It just, I can see, because there's so much going on, so many jokes, not even just told, just visual jokes that I think that, and in a high-minded way, it's high-minded trash talk. kind of. It's great, and I love it. So anyway, yeah, A+ for me. I can't wait for you to see it, man.
I
Uh,
can't wait. Yeah, it's in a couple days.
yeah, awesome. All right, guys, let me get some stuff open here, and I'm gonna have Chase guess. Actually, no, hold on. Before I get to that, because of an update thing that we have that we're going to talk about, um, go into this first. So we have some changes coming to the show, and the box office is part of them. So before I wanted to do the box office, I just wanted to tell you all this stuff. Chase is going to help me out here. We have some changes coming to the show in the new year. One thing that I wanted to ask Chase, and this is kind of directly related to some behind-the-scenes drama in terms of internet connectivity and all of that. Chase, how has the show gone in terms of me always staying like audible for you?
There was a couple times in the beginning of the episode where like you would say your sentence and maybe one word would kind of bleep out, but other than that, crystal clear.
Excellent. So that's pretty much definite a definite pass. In which case, we are kind of excited to tell you that there's going to be some differences next year. The next few shows are going to be the same, and in fact, we're going to be bringing you a bunch of shows before January 2nd, I guess you could say. Next week is going to be Mortal Engines. We're kind of fulfilling that whole, we're coming at it mysteriously. We haven't talked about it at all, or haven't seen anything about it at all, I should say. And then we'll be doing Aquaman and If Beale Street Could Talk at the same time on December 30th because Chase is going to be out of town the weekend that Aquaman comes out. But also coming the week of Aquaman and Beale Street is our top 10 of the year. We're going to be recording that one on the evening of the 28th and posting it on the 31st. Last day of the year just seems fitting. I feel like we'll have seen enough movies, not everything, but enough movies that we can confidently go into a top 10. And we're obviously bringing back Mark Dusick from last year. Had a lot of fun talking with him, and we'll have a lot of fun again. And then on January 1st, we're cutting the number in half, but we're doing our top 5 most anticipated films of 2019. And then we're starting anew, kind of in the new year, where we're starting off with Escape Room and moving from there. We've already got January planned out in terms of the main reviews, and I'm still figuring out my extra reviews, but generally going to be for January, the extra reviews will be 2018 holdovers that kind of expand throughout late December and throughout January. And then once February comes, our main reviews will be accompanied by my extra review of a 2019 movie. So past January, 2018 will be done. Also, the structure of the show is going to change. I will let Chase announce one of the things because it was actually on his end that the idea came about, but it was on my end that this first one did. We are going to be switching the trailers and news segments on the show from beginning on the January 6th episode because I'm doing something rather drastic. I am no longer going to watch trailers. I think I'm going to keep that up for about a year, and then I'm going to go from there and see what happens. If it turns out that I can't stay away, then I'll just come back to it, and we may just keep that structure, or we may switch back to this one. But for now, I think that what I need to do is stay away from trailers for the most part. There's going to be some that I might chime in on. I'm not going to be able to avoid the Star Wars Episode 9 trailer, for instance. That's not going to happen. But some of these little trailers, like I could easily have skipped the Pledge trailer. I wouldn't have missed anything. It's not possible. But I think that what just needs to happen for me right now is that I need to stay away from trailers. I want to also we're also cutting down the amount of news that we talk about by a little bit. So what we'll probably do is like maybe two or three, or even one or two big news stories plus a casting corner thing, which we always try to, or we have always tried to put that all of that together recently. And then obviously I won't have Oscar beat in the new year, but or at least not very long into the new year. I am going to finish that out, and then beyond that, it'll be a little bit shorter just because we'll only be talking about one or two big news items in the casting. So we're cutting all of that down. I just feel like this will shorten the show a bit. We like bringing nice sized shows to you guys, but we've got lives too, and that's just me being honest. We love doing the show, but you know, it would be a little easier to fit into our schedules if it was a shorter show too. So we're trying to figure out ways of consolidating. And I think that only one person talking about trailers will do that, especially because I've just been feeling like I need to cut down on those, and also just fewer news items. Chase, I will switch it over to you to talk about what's going to happen with the box office section of the show. And then I will present one final note about when this show is going to show up each week. So take it away with what's going to happen to the box office.
We ain't doing it anymore. Listen, the reason why the box office was a part of this show in the first place is because I liked doing it, but the problem is the box office numbers don't come in until about 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, depending on the day. I mean, sometimes it's a little later, sometimes it's earlier, and so in order to not constrain Joel and I's schedule to just Sunday, we were going to go move to a different day. Now, whatever day that Joel reveals, just know that, if something in our lives kind of happens to where we can't do it on this day, then we have a couple other days to kind of do a little leeway. So that's what kind of, this gives us more leeway to do it just in case if one of us is out of town or whatever. But Joel, what is the new day that we want to do this?
Yeah, essentially the feeling, the idea behind this is that right now the default day to record is Sunday. Sometimes we have to move that because of schedule stuff, but now we're going to move the default day to Friday nights. So, and we're not going to be recording live. Chase has decided that, right? You've kept that kind of.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I mean, we're not recording live right now.
Right. So there we go. Because partly because it doesn't really matter if we record live, and partly because a lot of you tend to listen later into the week, Monday or Tuesday or something. So it doesn't really matter if we record live. And so we're going to be now posting episodes on Saturday mornings, around the same time as we would on a Sunday, something like 10. I can't imagine that Chase is going to change that time, sometime around 10. But we're gonna set Friday evenings as the default time to record the show. That way, we have the rest of the weekend. I have Fridays off at work, and it just made sense that we should not try to put something on a day where I'm not off, and I can't take off because we can't take weekend days off at work. Just to kind of do that. It just makes way more sense, and I think that it will open the show up a little bit more, to maybe even, slightly longer reviews than we generally give now, because our Green Book review wasn't that long. It was like, 20 minutes, something like that, and it was in the midst of a show that was, a lot of time. I don't know how long, 2 hours and 26 minutes, something like that. So yeah, I think that it'll open the show up a little bit more, and I think that it's a good decision. And I should just make clear again about the trailers. This is half a thing for the show because I think that it'll shorten the length a bit, and partly because personally, I just feel like I need to step away from that part of the film world. Um, so fun fact, whenever I came on the show, it was only a couple of months after I had made an attempt to stop watching trailers. Um, and then whenever I came on the show, I was like, well, okay, so this is, we got to do this now because I'm coming on a show where the other person talks about trailers. I got to join that up. So we don't want to take the trailers away. We've heard from one or two of you that we should keep the trailers on there, but I just feel like I need to step away from that so that I can kind of focus on a totally neutral position of walking into the theater. So again, with few exceptions that will probably specifically very calculatedly position in the show, something like Star Wars or maybe the next Avengers trailer or something like that. Not the Spider-Man trailer, but some of the other ones. I'm probably going to chip in on those, but but for the most part, like 99% of the trailers, I'm not going to be talking about anymore because I feel like I've got to step away from that to kind of just refocus my energy on watching the movies. That's just what I feel like I got to do. So again, nothing like personal toward the show, just personal for me on that end. But I think I'm excited for these movements. Now, I was gonna have Chase guess the top 10, but I mean the top 5, I should say. I'm not. I'm just gonna go ahead and report it. Chase, don't worry about guessing, and that's mainly because the top 5 remained exactly the same from last week.
Exactly, because nothing came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Except I'm really excited for you to get to the Aquaman news because it did open up in foreign markets today or this weekend, and let's just say this. I already looked at the number. It's impressive.
I'm going to look at that because I'm trying to figure out how to view that on Box Office Mojo. I've never actually looked at that on here. I guess I'll have you report it, but let's get to the top 5. So remaining at number 5, Bohemian Rhapsody with 6 million. This thing is a huge hit. I think it's made 500 million worldwide, right? And then remaining at number 4, Fantastic Beasts with 6.8 million. Okay. Creed 2 is at number 3 with 10 million, and The Grinch is at number 2 with 15.2 million. Ralph Breaks the Internet with 16.1, topped the box office again. Now, this is the first time in a while that 2 animated movies have topped the box office. I can't think of the last time that was the case, although it happened last week too. So I guess that was the last time. But the last time different movies topped the box office in both places. I don't know what that would have been unless it was Toy Story 3 and Despicable Me. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But Green Book did shoot up from number 10 to number 7, even though it only rose 0.1%. It just made 3.9 million, and because it was such a light weekend, it's a good number. The Schindler's List re-release in sort of concurrently to its 4K release on home video made 551,000. Pretty good news. They don't these re-releases don't typically do like great, but that's pretty good. It was also the initial release for Mary Queen of Scots and Vox Lux, which both made really impressive debuts in smaller theater in limited release. Mary Queen of Scots made 50,000 per theater in 4 theaters for $200,000. That's good. That's a really good number. That's the highest per theater average of the week. There was also Ben is Back, also opened in limited release. Vox Lux made 162.2 thousand, and then Ben is Back made 80,000. And The Favorite jumped up a bit and made 15,000 per theater. That's nice to see. I have a feeling that that it's going to be a big hit in the limited market. So good news all around. Not a whole lot of movement, except that there was a re-release of The Wife this weekend, the one with Glenn Close, And because of that, it jumped up from number 79 to number 22 with a 20,875.2% jump. It made $222,000. I still have not seen that movie, but I've been hearing pretty good things about it, so I guess I need to catch up with it or try to catch up with it before the Oscars, because it could be that this is the Best Actress winner for Glenn Close. We'll see about that, but yeah. So that's pretty much the news, guys. Not a lot happened. It's going to be big next week with like what, 3 movies in wide release? The Mule from Clint Eastwood, even though there's not really much buzz yet about that. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I know you hated. I'm just trying to get the reaction out of him. And then, of course, Mortal Engines, which we'll see, because, again, not a whole lot of buzz. Even, like, just, I haven't been paying attention to it, but I haven't even seen any. So it's just, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see about that. And, again, we're reviewing Mortal Engines next week. So, Chase, any last thoughts?
Yeah, so Aquaman opened up in China, right? It
Yeah.
made $93 million
Oh, awesome.
in China.
Yeah.
That is very
Whoa.
hard to get to that number. Like that, this movie's gonna crush. I can't wait. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. But just to wrap things up,
I know a sequel's already in development.
yeah, they're already fast tracking that. So hey,
Yeah.
good on them. I'm glad they're making a bounce back from Justice League. So yeah, so that will do it for the show, guys. If you guys want to follow us on any of our social medias, or follow Joel on his reviews on his website or my YouTube channel, all those links will be in the description below. And guys, just get ready for the onslaught, because I'm excited to deliver all this to you guys. Next week we got Mortal Engines, then we're going to take a week off, and then you guys will get 3 episodes in a row. It's going to be massive. I cannot wait.
Yeah, literally consecutive days. It's gonna be insane. We got literally 30th, 31st, and 1st episodes. So
yeah, it's
you'll have
going
a
to
lot
be
of
so much
listening
fun.
stuff.
So much fun. So yeah, so that will be the rest of the schedule for the end of the year in December. So next week for 258, we have Mortal Engines. But let us know all your thoughts down below on this week's episode 257. That is Joel over there. I am Chase. Peace out, everyone. You guys are awesome. And remember to spread this around on social media. Let people know this is the Definitive Movie Podcast. Reel me in, : a movie podcast. Peace out, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.